All right, let's dive into something that, let's be honest, drives a lot of German learners crazy: prepositions. But here's the thing, they're not as random as they seem. By the end of this, you're going to see that there's a really cool logical system behind it all. So let's get into it.
You've probably been there, right? Staring at a sentence and wondering, why is it ich gehe in den Park, but then ich bin in dem Park? I'm going to the park versus I am in the park. Why does that tiny little word for the just change? It feels totally random, I know, but I promise you it's not. And today we're going to solve this exact mystery. It's way easier than you think.
So the best way to think about this is like a puzzle. To really get German prepositions, you first have to see how they connect with the German case system. Once you see how those pieces fit together, boom, it all just clicks.
Okay, let's start with the super basics. What even is a preposition? Well, it's just a little word like in, on, with, or for. Think of it as a relationship word. It tells you where something is, or when it's happening, or how it's being done. Pretty straightforward, right?
But, and this is the big but in German, you can't just throw a preposition in there. Each one comes with a very specific rule. It's kind of like a boss that points to the noun following it and tells it exactly which grammatical case to use. And that is what makes words like der, die, and das change all the time.
Okay, so the best way to tackle this whole puzzle is to start with the easy wins. We're talking about the prepositions that never change their minds. They have one rule, and they stick to it, no matter what. Let's kick things off with the ones that always demand the accusative case. And to make this super easy to remember, we've got a fantastic little mnemonic. Now, it sounds a bit funny, but trust me, it works. DOGFUUBE. That's for durch, ohne, gegen, für, bis, and entlang. If you spot any one of these words, you know, without a doubt, that the noun that comes next is always in the accusative case. No exceptions, ever.
And here's the whole crew. We've got durch for through, für for, gegen for against. You get the idea. These guys are your new best friends because they're totally predictable. Just get this list down, and honestly, you've already won a huge part of the battle. Let's see this in action, because that's where it really makes sense. Take the first sentence. Park is a masculine noun, right? So it's normally der Park. But because we're using the preposition durch, it gets forced into the accusative case, becoming durch den Park. See? The preposition is the boss here.
All right, you're doing great. On to our next set of unbreakable rules, the prepositions that are always dative. And yep, you guessed it, there's another mnemonic. This one's a bit of a mouthful, I'll admit. ABMNSZVG. Let's break down what that stands for.
So this is the dative team. And you're going to see some super common words in here, like aus, from, mit, with, and zu, to. The second you can get your brain to automatically link these words with the dative case, your German is just going to sound so much more natural. And here is the dative rule at work. The masculine noun der Bus becomes mit dem Bus. Why? Because the preposition mit is in charge and it demands the dative case. The article just has to obey. It's a solid rule you can always count on. Okay, deep breath. You've nailed the fixed rules. Now it's time for the main event, what we call the two-way prepositions. These are the chameleons of German grammar, and they're the real reason for that puzzle we started with. But don't you worry, there is one simple question that unlocks their entire secret. And here they are, all 9 of them. These are the prepositions that can swing either way, accusative or dative. You'll notice they mostly have to do with position, on, behind, in, next to, over, under, and so on. So, how on earth do you know which case to use? This right here, this is everything. This is the golden rule. If the preposition is describing motion towards a destination, you ask the question wohin, which means where to, and you use the accusative. But if it's describing a static, fixed location, you ask wo, where at, and you use the dative. That is it. That's the whole secret. Motion versus location.
And this slide brings us right back to our original puzzle and solves it perfectly. Look at the first one. Ich gehe in die Schule. I am going to the school. That's motion. It's a journey to a destination. So you ask wohin and you use the accusative. But then, ich bin in der Schule. I am in the school. See, that's a fixed location, no movement. So you ask wo and use the dative. It's the same exact logic for the book on the table. Putting the book onto the table is motion, accusative. The book just lying there on the table is location, dative. See, it makes sense.
And hey, here's another pro tip to help you out.
German has these handy verb pairs that basically give you a huge clue about which case to use. The action verbs, like legen, to lay, or stellen, to place, almost always signal motion, and that means accusative. Their calmer partners, verbs like liegen, to lie, and stehen, to stand, describe a state or a location, and that signals the dative. It's a great little cheat sheet. Okay, you've got the core logic down pat. Now let's go over just a couple of final tips that'll help you start sounding less like you're reading from a textbook and more like a pro.
Now, you might have also heard whispers about genitive prepositions. And yeah, words like wegen, because of, or während, during, technically require the genitive case. But here's the deal. That's mostly for formal written German. In everyday casual conversation, you'll hear people use the dative instead all the time. So it's good to recognize them for sure, but don't stress about mastering them when you're just starting out.
Oh, and this one is a fantastic shortcut to sounding more like a native speaker. Germans love to smash prepositions and articles together into contractions. So instead of saying the full in dem Haus, pretty much everyone just says im Haus. Instead of zu der Schule, it's zur Schule. Using these is such a simple hack, but it will instantly make your German flow so much better.
All right, that was a lot of info, I know. So you ready to see if it's all sunk in? Let's do a super quick quiz to put it all to the test.
Okay, first question. Legt das Buch auf Tisch. Should it be den Tisch or dem Tisch? The clue is in the verb, legt. Is that an action, a motion, or is it a fixed location? Ask yourself, wohin oder wo?
And the answer is auf den Tisch, yes. The verb legen means to lay, which is an action. There's movement involved. He's moving the book onto the table. So the question is wohin, and that means we use the accusative. Great job.
Okay, next one. This one's all about sounding natural. How would a German speaker actually say this sentence? Anna geht zu der Schule.
You got it. It's Anna geht zur Schule. Remember, zu plus der squishes together to become zur. Getting the hang of these contractions is a really simple but powerful way to level up your fluency. Awesome work.
So there you have it. The secret to German prepositions isn't just memorizing a million random rules. It's about understanding a system. You've got your fixed rule guys, and then for the tricky ones, it all comes down to that one simple idea, motion versus location. Now that you've cracked that code, the only question is, what other unbreakable rule of German are you ready to conquer next?